of your time. It was always a joy as I travel around the district to be able to spend time in worship with our congregations, and I thank you for this time today. We gather today as the people of God, as the Christian community, as United Methodists. As we think about who we are, the people of First United Methodist Church in Pittsburgh, Kansas, it is continually before us to ask ourselves how we are fulfilling and living out our discipleship. To seek help, we turn to the one who created us, the one who formed us and loves us as we are, and yet always seeks to lead us to become more than we are. On this day, as we observe the ascension of Jesus, we are reminded of the instructions that he gave to continue his mission. In this reading that I just shared from the Gospel of Mathew, we hear what may be familiar words. This passage is known as the Great Commission. When Jesus gathered his church together, those very early disciples, to send them into the future, he gave them this commission. He told them to go. Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, and to teach them to obey everything that Jesus had commanded them. And then he concluded with that most important sentence, and remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. In these words, we have the foundation and the instruction for the faithful of every age, including our time to this very day. This commission is both simple and it is profound. It is easy to hear the words, and yet it may be more challenging to live. It is a guide for us to the highest form of faithfulness. And it continues to hold the promise for a way of life that furthers God's vision on earth. We as United Methodists may turn to our roots for a guide in living this commission. Our founder of the United Methodist Church, John Wesley, has given us a blueprint for living the commission to take our faith out into the world, to share the love of God with all people, and to invite them into discipleship. John Wesley was one who ministered and preached to the people of the streets of his day. He reached out to people who were down and out, people who did not have a formal education, those who were considered in that day the outcast of society. And as he spread this word, he spoke to them about a church that was on the move, a church growing in its understanding of mission and ministry. As he spoke to those people who were considered ordinary people just like you and me, he took his preaching to where they were, to the fields, to the mines, to the neighborhood corners. And he opened up the gospel to them so that they could take what might have seemed like abstract thoughts and apply them to their own lives. He made an intentional effort to reach out to children and youth. He organized the Sunday school so that young people might know Jesus and live according to Jesus' teachings. He created a spirituality that gave Christians of all ages a resource that would undergird them and their faith even in the toughest of times. I don't know about you, but it feels to me like in the last couple of weeks, we've experienced some kind of tough times around here. The storms have been amazing, unbelievable. the heartache of the devastation in Joplin and in Redding, Kansas, where some of our sister congregations do not have a place to worship today, and where so many people are struggling. We understand in our own personal lives when we have those tough times. And it is to us that we hear the words of John Wesley when he says, the faith community moves forward through its witness and mutual support in God's mission. And knowing that we would need some help with that, he gave us 3 simple rules, and you may be familiar with them, but my hope is before you leave today, you're going to know them. So let's see if we can learn them. They are indeed simple to say, at least. The first one is do no harm. The second one is do good. And the third one is stay in love with God. So I'm going to say them, and I'll ask you to repeat them after me. We're going to do this a couple of times because I know you're educated people. You learn quickly. Do no harm.
Do no harm.
Do good.
Do good.
Stay in love with God.
Stay in love with God.
I almost could hear you. Let's try it one more time. Do no harm.
Do no harm.
Do good.
Do good.
Stay in love with God.
Stay in love with God.
Hooray! Remember that at least until you leave this worship service today. Hopefully longer. You know, these rules were written a long time ago, and yet they speak to us today. And while they are indeed called simple, they may be harder to live. But when and where they are practiced, they have the power to change the world. Just think about it for a minute. How often do we groan about living in a fast-paced world, stressed, complicated, things are going on too much? We may even feel that we get trapped into being someone that we don't really even want to be, or living a life that we don't want to live. We long for some way to cut through the complexities and the challenges, sometimes even the brokenness of our lives. We might even say that we would like to simplify. It is when we feel these feelings that we reach a place as a people of faith that we are ready to give serious consideration to another way, a more faithful way of living as disciples of Jesus Christ. We as United Methodists are claiming what we call the United Methodist way, to do no harm, to do good, and to stay in love with God. These 3 rules are discussed in a small book by Bishop Reuben Job. It's entitled, amazingly enough, 3 Simple Rules, a Wesleyan Guide for Living. Some of you may have read it, maybe you've even discussed it. In the book's preface, Bishop Job writes that in the fast-paced and complex world of the 21st century, the people of faith are ready for a more faithful way of living and discipleship. Methodism founder John Wesley articulated how to live faithfully and then practiced and taught those principles. And then Bishop Job goes on to say this, and now it is up to us to see if we will take it, teach it, and practice it until it becomes our natural way of living, a way of living that will mark our life together and our lives as individual Christians. It is up to us. We may need to begin by asking ourselves some questions. What new ways are there for us to practice our faith? How do we love God and love our neighbor in ways that are simple and yet substantial, so that none are turned away and are able to practice together in our quest for faithful living? Do others look at us and see God at work in our lives? Is our way of living life-giving rather than life-draining? Is our way of living one that will enhance the quality of life for each of us? As Christian people and as United Methodists, we believe the possibilities for this way of living not only exist, but are encouraged, and when practiced, make a difference in people's lives. And when we see that way of living practiced, we are inspired and drawn to it. As United Methodists, we name our mission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. That's not a small statement, and yet it is the heart of who we are. As the United Methodists of First United Methodist Church in Pittsburgh, Kansas, you are making a commitment to explore and discern your vision and your mission that speaks to your congregation and beyond, to your community here in Pittsburgh, Kansas in 2011. Think about how you, as the people of God in Pittsburgh, are living out the mission that we share as United Methodists. You know, I've heard about you. In fact, I've even seen your ministry in action in places. Your faithful worship, inviting newcomers to come and share in your life together and to grow in faith with you. Your so very gifted music, and the way that that touches the hearts of those who are growing in faith. Your outreach to children and families. Vacation Bible School was mentioned this morning. There's activities like the Legos program that teaches the Bible to children in new and creative ways. Your commitment to spiritual growth through Sunday school and adult education and Bible study. Your outreach and mission in welcoming the Korean congregation into your community. Your outreach to college students. Your support of your Pastor Jim and his leadership development and growth among you and professionally. Your mission trips. Anyone here going on the mission trip to Appalachia Service Project next week? We'll catch them in the next service. A mission near and dear to my heart, and I'll be praying for your team as they go. Your mission support of Wesley House, and so many other projects that you share both locally and globally, including your response to those who have experienced disaster. I am sure that the list goes on, and I hope that you will take time in your mind to think about those places in the church that you are involved in making our mission a reality. For these are the ways that your church is living the United Methodist way. As you vision together, as you reach out and grow, you are seeking to be a vital church. Remember those words of John Wesley when he said that the faith community moves forward through its witness and mutual support in God's mission. Another way that we are saying that today in the United Methodist Church is to say, rethink church. You together are rethinking church as you discern your mission and your vision and your commitment to the people in this area. I want to commend you for your dedication to this mission, and I am so pleased that you are taking the time and willing to ask the important questions, to stretch and maybe even risk a bit in order to live the United Methodist way. As we gather today, on this Ascension Sunday, in many ways a very ordinary day in June. Let us seize the opportunities and let us challenge ourselves to go out as the people of God, as the Christian community we call United Methodists. You know, after all, that is the first word in Jesus' great commission to us. Go. Go into the neighborhoods and the schools and the parks and your offices and businesses. Go and share the good news of God's love. Go and tell the people of Pittsburgh, Kansas, what is happening here in this faith community, in this church. Go and live the United Methodist way. Go and give hope. Bishop Sharon Brown Christopher, in an Episcopal address, sends us forth with these words. For such a time as this, God calls the United Methodist Church to be a sign, a demonstration of God's purpose for the world, so that when the world looks at us, they see people living responsibly and gracefully by doing no harm, doing good, and staying in love with God. They will exclaim, I want to live the Jesus way, the Christian way, even the United Methodist way, for this is the way of hope. May God's blessings be with each and every one of you as you grow in your discipleship and as you continue to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ in the world in which you live. Go and share your mission and ministry with the world in which you live. Thanks be to God. Amen.